All right, guys, we're going to start really soon. I'm just getting things ready here. Let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. Let's do camera. Hello. How's everybody doing? Let's put me there. Okay, I'm pretty much all set up and ready to go. All right, guys, so this week's topic is going to be A9 meta interactions. Really, there should be like ManyChat in front of there, but anyways, there's A9 meta interactions is what I call this topic. So we're going to be going over the A9 meta interaction add-on flows, which are within the ManyChat rebate giveaway flows. And essentially all it does is it gets the users / customers to do additional steps before purchasing your product. So there are kind of 3 flows in total, and I'll be kind of going over them. I might not be able to cover every single one of them in this webinar. So I want to say at the kind of mid / tail end, you guys will actually have the option of which one I actually go in and edit with you guys. But the other ones are very similar. 2 of them are basically identical. The only difference between one another is that they ask different questions. So yeah, the kind of main topic, again, just meta interactions and how it helps you kind of get more ranking juice out of those customers because you're getting them to do alternative actions on your listing opposed to just purchasing it. I see Troy just joined. So I feel like you want to say something, Troy?
Yeah, just want to say hi. Welcome. I'm glad I'm hopping in right before you're getting started for today's topic. This is a good one.
Yep, for sure. This is a really good one. So this kind of ties into with like last week's topic, which was, Amazon SEO explained. So there is kind of a slide that shows those 3 circles. And this one does kind of benefit that, 3rd circle, which was interaction circle, where you can get users to, stay on your page a little longer, interact with it, make it look a little bit more of an organic experience. So yeah, that is kind of the intro. What we're going over, like the calls are going to be an hour long. I know last week was quite a bit longer than that, but this week we're really going to be focused on making sure we make it at least an hour, if not a little less than an hour. We encourage you guys to kind of keep your video off, which I don't even think you guys can put it on. We do have Q&As at the start and at the end. So right after this slide, there's actually a section where you guys can ask us some questions. So if you do have any questions, right now would be the time to type it in, and then we can kind of go in and answer that. And be sure if you do ask any questions or you want to share some feedback, don't put any kind of sensitive information. And these calls are recorded, so if you guys want, you can have the previous recordings from the past webinars. Anything you want to add there, Joy?
Stay muted and keep chatting away.
Yeah, I saw that.
I got to start with a Zoom faux pas. Why not? But no, it's great. Yeah, for those, and I see some names, faces, or just names in this case, from prior attendees. So always great to see folks coming back in to continue catching up with us as we do the weekly support, weekly trainings, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, what Tyler does a really great job of is really addressing topics that do and should matter for us as Amazon sellers. And the reason why I mentioned for this one in particular, it's one that you probably do not see a lot of content out there covering it. So I'm going to encourage you, if this is your first one or if you've joined us on other ones, make sure to stay to the end, because I can almost guarantee you haven't seen whether it's the topic covered, the way to take advantage of the topic that we're going to touch on, and then in the same spirit of really all the other prior trainings, free resources to make sure that you know exactly, like you can just plug in the way to get some of the outcomes from A9 Meta. Did you come up with that name, Tyler? That sounds like a Tyler name.
I did actually, yeah. Yeah, because it just, I mean, it made sense because like Meta, I kind of think of like a small and interactions, like A9 Meta interactions, so like little small interactions. So yeah, I did come up with that name. I've coined quite a few little terms in our webinars. Yeah. So again, guys, if you do have any questions, now would be the time to answer it. I don't necessarily like to take pauses, when I'm going through the actual topic itself. I do sometimes, but this is kind of the time to do it, is at the start, and at the end I have a little bit of section where we can actually answer your questions. I don't see any coming in, so I'll just hover here for a little bit and then I will carry on once time permits me to.
And while we're waiting on that too, Tyler, just to throw it out there, because when we initially started these trainings, they were geared just to Seller Tools users. We made the decision to really open this up to anybody in the community. And so what I would encourage you to do, if you know somebody, who's interested, maybe looking at some of these strategies, feel free to share. We do record these trainings, but I can't reinforce enough Tyler being able to, and I make my best effort, but being able to ask your questions live, get those topics and things answered while you're with us, it's the best way to make sure that you are 100% confident of, okay, in meta interactions, I know, I've heard you now talk about how important and powerful it is, but translating it into how it shows up in your bottom line and gets you more sales, gets you more visible on Amazon. We want to make sure you're feeling ultimately very confident in being able to use these strategies. So definitely use the Q&A, use the chat. Feel free to share again those that you feel like, even if they're very last minute, of course, since we're jumping right in, have them join us, and excited to be watching the presenter, Tyler, take us through this topic.
Okay, awesome. So we have two questions. I'll answer the first one that just came in. So the quickest way to get keywords indexed and ranking in the top, 306, which is just like basically just saying index, for an old listing, do meta interactions help? So the quickest way would definitely be to include that inside your listing, whether that be in like bullet points, description, title. If chances are, if it's not indexed, it's probably, it's probably not that important, because it theoretically the most important keywords should be in the title, and those usually always get indexed. There are backend search terms. Meta interactions isn't necessarily going to help you get indexed for a specific keyword. This is just going to give you additional ranking juice for the traffic that you're already driving to get, rebates or, conversions / purchases. So I would say, the meta interactions isn't going to help you get keywords indexed. It's not really the goal of it or purpose. Okay, so we have another one here. Got a seller who wants to do rebate automations with hemp products. I read that the best way to send traffic is a landing page. It is too risky to send traffic through Messenger. So I know with hemp products and some other categories, it's really, really difficult to just advertise that product, because Facebook and other platforms will not let you advertise it. So I had a client that did hemp a long time ago. I think it was about a year or so ago. And what we did was, to get that traffic, we just did internal giveaways. I know that's not like the easiest solution if you don't have a list. But if you don't have a list, and maybe this is where like kind of networking and working with maybe other sellers, or somebody that might be in that kind of, I would say it's kind of like skincare / beauty kind of space. I don't know exactly what hemp product it is. But you can run like solo ads. And again, these are like past webinars we have done. So sending it through Messenger isn't the problem. It's advertising for it. That's what I've noticed. So I don't think you'll have a problem running that campaign through Messenger. I just think you'll have a problem running ads to it. So Facebook ads being an example, just because they won't let that ad go through. I'm hoping that answered it. It probably wasn't the best. Do you want to add to that, Troy?
No, it's a very, very similar sentiment from my side. It's the Facebook ad side where it's very tricky. And then obviously people use creative language and selective imagery and try to really work around it. That's really where it almost gives you more trouble than you need to, for if you could use an influencer or avoid Facebook in particular. I would much rather go that route to the top of funnel exposure. Because I think it's just a minefield. But then if they're in Messenger, that's not really the challenge. Mm-hmm. So you almost have to break the two off. Ad for exposure, Messenger for engagement. The Messenger part isn't really the...
Yeah, you're not going to run into any kind of problems there. It's just the ads. It's tricky. It sucks because it's always a hell to do that. Anyway, so the next question I see here is it true doing rebates like 5 to 2 a day cheaper than PPC, assuming that the listing is fully optimized? I don't know if it's necessarily cheaper because so it depends what your goals are. If your goals are like, let's say to rank, right? And you're saying what's better, PPC versus, rebates. It kind of depends what the conversion rate is on your PPC because you can be fairly profitable if you're, well optimized and your PPC can convert. But if you're not well optimized and you don't convert for that keyword, then PPC becomes extremely expensive, and that's where maybe rebates comes in more of a way to get keyword ranks. So that one's a very difficult question to just say like, yeah, rebates is the way to go, or yeah, PPC is the way to go. You want to kind of add to that, Troy?
Yeah, I spoke with a seller today. They were running PPC and they were using a AI driven tool, and they which usually it's very cost intensive on the front end, but it was like $5,000 in ad spend for 1,500 in revenue. So I'm starting to get more and more of these stories of PPC getting astronomical, whether it's the tool that's used, the strategy that's implemented, maybe the lack of subject matter expertise or like follow through. So my premise now is that PPC is as it is because the overall cost on aggregate is going up for PPC. So yeah, I mean, it can often be, as long as you really know your numbers, know your cost of goods, and know what it takes to move a single rebate, it can often be more cost effective. But this is where, for some of you I know who are running agencies that are providing ManyChat type services, this is where it's a really exciting time for you, because that backdrop of PPC getting out of hand and then people having to pay PPC agencies and then they're paying $5,000 for a PPC, like it's just rising so high. And if you can get away with, hey, giving away a handful of units a day with an automated solution that's very cost effective, it's a better ROI based on what I see at the very least.
All right, fair enough. I think that was a good answer. Okay, so I don't see any questions, which actually is perfect timing because we got to be on the next slide. So I'm going to go kind of full screen here. And these are kind of the main 4 bullet points that I'm going to cover. Some of them are basically past webinars, so I'll actually be just kind of linking to those, just because it just makes sense for me to recover everything, and it was literally an hour topic by itself. So the main 4 bullet points for meta interactions is setting up your account, ManyChat account for success. So this means like, making sure things are foldered, making sure that you disable the default reply, all these kind of things. There's like, I think 6 or 7 things that I remember putting in a webinar, and it's like, that's how you set up your ManyChat account. And it doesn't take that long once you actually go through it and you've done a handful of ManyChat accounts. It's just knowing what you should be doing and how to set up the account is really important, just so that way it helps you further down the line succeed with ManyChat/Amazon. Okay, the next thing is understanding the rebate automation templates. So again, I have a past webinar where I go over how to edit the webinar, or how to edit the rebate automation templates, how to install them, how to manipulate them in ManyChat. It's really, really not that difficult. In fact, you almost don't even need to be in Flow Builder to actually edit the templates. It's not like the old versions. All you have to really do is make sure your API keys are connected properly, make sure the bot fields are set up properly as well, and then the template is ready to go. But of course, if you want to add in additional like add-ons, like you want to add like search find by as an example, then that requires a little bit more add-on. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is installing the meta interactions template that you want. So like I said, there's 3 as of now, and we're going to go over maybe 1, maybe 2 at most. We'll see kind of how much time permits us to go through things, but you pick the one you want. And again, I'll go over 3 and like what they're all about. And then when you install it into your ManyChat account, you make sure you already have a rebate automation template installed as well. And then you're just going to basically plumb it in, similar to like how you plumb in search find by, or how you would plumb in laundering links. You just basically copy all the stuff into the meta interactions template, and then you paste that into the rebate automation template, and then you plumb it in, meaning you just like click the lines where the arrows go for the ManyChat flows. I know that that probably wasn't a great explanation, but I will go over it like in a use case so you guys will see what I mean by that. And then the last thing is just editing the meta interactions rebate flow to match, which is basically what I was talking about, like plumbing it in. Okay, so setting up the account, like I said, this is something I've already done in the past. So let me just kind of exit out of this little screen. So again, like setting up the account, if you guys want, I will give you guys access to kind of these links at the end. I could send it in the chat, but I don't think that'll benefit you guys too much. But this webinar was roughly, I want to say about an hour and 10 minutes long, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And I do have the slides here. So if you're interested in just looking at the Google Slides and seeing all the different steps you have to take, it's almost like an SOP really on like what you should be doing. We can give you that at the end. So let's account there. Okay, so the next thing is setting up your rebate automation templates. Without the rebate automation templates, the meta interaction flows are more or less useless, just because they're not very useful by themselves. Because again, they're add-ons, right? So anytime you see add-on or footer flow, those usually means that they're like complementary to something else. And this something else being rebate automation. So I already go over how to edit it, you know, how to make sure that it's working properly, like how to set everything up. We'll give you guys links to this at the end. And if you're curious to find where all the templates are as well, you can actually go on the Seller.tools website and I'm not gonna be able to memorize this. I think it's under automation. Let me just go in live because I don't want to make a mess of this. So let me just click in. It is under, yeah, automation, then ManyChat flows. And then you'll see all of the kind of different flows right here. And if you want to go specifically into rebate automation, you could see that they're all available right here. Very simple to download. You just click into whatever one you want, whatever version you want. I prefer this one. And then you would scroll down and you'd hit download and that'd bring you to the installation page. Okay, so that's it for rebate automation. This is kind of what the flow looks like on a very overview. I know that looks really, really confusing. You're like, wow, this is just kind of crazy. But it's not that difficult once you actually get into it. I don't want to pretend it's extremely simple. To edit all of this though, it's not that difficult. Again, like the main bulk of it is making sure your API keys are connected properly and then making sure the bot fields match whatever your goals are for that particular product, right? So like matching your minimum wallet balance, making sure that you give them the right link to find your products and so on. Okay, I know I'm talking fairly fast, but again, I'm trying to make sure that these calls line up in roughly an hour long because anyways, we want to make sure we're being sensitive with your guys' time. Okay, so the last kind of thing that I'm going to be talking about, a different webinar and not this one, is the SEO explained. So this is where me, Troy, and Anthony Lee went into it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go through the entirety of the presentation, even though we ran so far ahead of our time, just because I wasn't anticipating how much time it would take to go over everything. And I think I was also underestimating, the back and forth that you can have with your kind of, I guess it's co-guests or, your guests, your collaboration partners. So it was our first time. So it was definitely a lesson learned there, but definitely a worthwhile webinar to go over because we did go over quite extensively, like on-page SEO, off-page SEO. And then we covered user interaction. I think we got near the end and then we kind of got cut off a little bit. And yeah, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this, Troy, or you want me to kind of jump onto the next one?
No, I would just make sure this is a really good one. It got very dense, but if you're selling on Amazon, if you really kind of want to have a good depth of understanding, Anthony Lee is a real expert and pro and somebody who's been in the community for, 7-8 years, if not longer. So has a wealth of knowledge, and it was a really great conversation. So this is good stuff to view yourself, share with your team. And it really breaks down our understanding of, at the end of the day, getting visible on Amazon, SEO, and the factors that make it up. We had a great conversation. It just went a little long, so I bear that in mind as you view and take a look at that. But really helpful content.
Yeah, for sure. So the reasoning why I made sure that this the SEO explained was last week was because I wanted to really try to make sure that you guys understand why the meta interactions is so kind of powerful and potent, is because we're hitting those user interactions, right? These are kind of the third circle. We're doing things like, on page time, trying to make it so they're on there a little longer. We're trying to make it so they do add to cart / time delays. Right? These are all kind of metrics that we do believe that Amazon is tracking, and they're, giving you ranking juice based on kind of those metrics, right? Now, I'm not saying every single metric is weighted the same. So we did have a lot of back and forth with Anthony Lee kind of regarding those kind of metrics. So if you're interested, again, this is something that's worthwhile watching, but it is a little bit longer. I think it was roughly like two hours and a little bit more, 2 hours and 10 minutes. I think I could be wrong there, but yeah, it was roughly that long. Okay, guys, so now we're getting into the kind of meta interaction flows, the good stuff. So we have 3 in total, like I had previously mentioned. We have the competitor page interactions, we have the Amazon page interactions, and then we have the ATC, which stands for add to cart, purchase time delay add-on. So they're all add-ons. Now, again, I'm probably only going to be able to cover 1, maybe 2. So this is where you guys get to pick which ones I cover. Put in the chat what number you would like. So 1 is for competitor page interactions, 2 is for Amazon page interactions, and then 3 is for ATC / purchase time delay interactions. So that way you guys can kind of figure out which ones I want to do. I will say though, these 2 right here are they're more or less the exact same thing. Number 1 and number 2 are very similar to one another. Number 3 is a little bit more of a unique one. The reasoning being is just because these ones here are what I call surveys. And then the third one is you're asking them to add it to cart, take a screenshot, and then you're telling them, oh, we're gonna get somebody to confirm that that's the right product, even though we're not actually getting somebody to confirm that that's the right product, although you can if you really want to. It's just a way to like, get them to add it to cart, and then hold for a certain period of time before they get the okay, hey, you can purchase it now. So you can kind of determine the time delay you want, because your support team's busy type of thing, right? It's just a fancy way of doing it. Okay, so let's go in the chat. So we got some 2s and 1s and 3s. Okay, so I think I see more 3s than anything else. So I think that's the one I'll cover. And then if time permits me, I'll go and cover number 2 as well. So time delays is what we're going to be doing. I figured that was going to be the one we wanted to do just because it is a very interesting one. So these are, I know it's a little hard to see with this background here, but these are the 3 links right here. And again, like you can find this on the Seller.tools website. It's under add-ons, right? So like, how there was the rebate automation little tab, and then I believe there's add-ons, and then there's finding method, and then other. I believe that's how it is. But anyways, you just click the add-ons, and then you'll see these flows right here, or at least clickable versions, those little squares, and then you click into download now, and then you're able to install this. So let me get into the actual ManyChat aspect. So I preemptively already installed everything I needed for you guys, just to kind of waste a little bit less time. But again, the installation process is very, very simple. It's not that difficult. You just kind of follow the ManyChat guidelines where you pick the template, then you click install, you click the page you want it installed on, and then you just hit that final installation button. You can look at the, theoretically, you would want to look at the actual custom fields / bot fields in this case that are going to be brought in with the add to cart / time delay, because you want it to merge with the pre-existing one from your rebate automation. So let me actually, because it does require a little bit more of an extra additional step when you get to the 3rd finalization. So let me stop sharing, and then I will continue to share. Let me just go like this. And then I'm going to click install. I just need to pick the page and stuff, so I'm trying to keep some information somewhat sensitive. And I will start sharing again.
But while you're doing that too, Tyler, I'll just make mention, because we're happen to pick the number 3 one, which is sort of add to cart focused.
Mm-hmm.
This came up in again a webinar that we were on, and part of the SEO conversation, but it is definitely more heavily weighted as a relative measure. The way that Amazon sort of describes this is add to cart over existing add to cart. What that means, and what we sort of can read into that, is that it's a relative measure, right? Amazon wants to see your product added to cart over, and as a relative comparison, other ASINs, but also a interested customer potentially adding cart to 4 other products prior to purchasing your product. So they're showing that and really rewarding that this buying activity or potential buying activity is taking place, but that at the end of the day, through that discovery process that a customer is going through, they're converting on your product and listing.
So I'm in the final kind of installation process, as you guys can see. And what you really want to do here is you see there's a target bot field right here, and you want this to merge with whatever bot field that you have inside your page for that specific rebate automation flow. So if you ever did, let's say you installed the rebate automation template and then you change this to match your product name, what will happen is that it probably will be blank. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that it merges with whatever rebate automation, so that way it doesn't cause you problems down the line. If you don't do this, I'll show you how you can get around that. But that's what I'm talking about when I say you want to make sure the bot field merges with a pre-existing bot field that's already in your account, or it should be if you've installed the rebate automation first. I'm hoping that makes sense. Okay. So now let's get back into this. So what I like to do, guys, is I like to have 2 tabs open at the same time. This makes my job a little bit easier when it comes to kind of copying a flow from here to there. I'll open up my rebate automation flow. And from just kind of as this recording right now, ManyChat seems to be a little bit laggy. I'm not 100% sure why. It just seems to be like the past couple of days I've been going into ManyChat. It just seems to be taking a lot longer to just navigate and move around. So just keep that in mind, that it is a little lagger. So this might take me just a little bit longer than normal, but you can still get through it. It just takes a little longer. That's all. Okay, so what I like to do is I have my rebate automation flow opened up, as you can see, and then I have my add to cart or whatever meta interaction you want to have in there. So in my case, it's the add to cart / time delay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit edit into the add to cart. And again, this is just like a fresh install. So like I didn't touch this at all. I didn't move around. And you'll notice that, actually, let me zoom out and just explain how I structure things first. So you'll notice that there's a lot of comments or notes here. And there's technically 3 types of notes I have. I have instructions, optional step, and then notes. Anytime you see instructions, it's something you need to do. Optional step is something that's, optional. And then notes is something for you to consider. So just keep that in mind anytime you do install kind of one of the templates that we provide here at Seller.tools, is that you'll see these notes everywhere. And they might not necessarily be something you need to do. Again, it could be an optional step where you can take it into consideration of whether or not you want to change it. So if we kind of zoom in a little bit, we'll see that this is where it starts, right? It says optional step. Feel free to edit any of the scripts. And when I say scripts, I just mean like the wording here to match your branding / goals. So again, this is just like you can change it, but you don't really have to. And then the instructions here goes over how to actually basically copy the entire flow and then paste it into something else. So that's something I'll actually show you in this kind of webinar, in this recording here as well. And then optional step, again, like there's just a whole bunch of them here. That's like, okay, if you want, you can get them to also add it to the wish list. Right? I just tell them to add it to cart, but you can say, hey, add it to your wish list as well. It's something that's optional. Instructions here is you need to enable OTN. If you're not sure, OTN stands for one-time notification. If you're not really 100% sure how to go over enabling that, I would highly recommend you go over our, setting up ManyChat webinar, where I actually go into setting up OTN and like how to enable it. There's also videos about it on the internet everywhere, so it's not something too difficult to find. This is another optional step where you can add an additional footer flow, which again is another webinar we actually went into. How to add footer flows, where's the best place to add them, so on. And right here is kind of like a hybrid where it's like it's an optional step, but it's also an instruction where you can, and this is where that bot field comes in handy, because this is the counter that counts up to how many units you want to give away per day, right? So if you wanted to give away, let's say 5 units per day, you'd set that in your bot field. When you install your rebate automation flow, you say, okay, I want to give away 5. And this is the counter that kind of enables that, and then it resets every day. what you want to do, the reason why you want to make sure the bot field merges with one another is because if they don't, then the bot field won't count up towards the proper, bot field. It'll just go somewhere else. Like it'll be its own little separate entity, and it won't merge well with one another. So if you did merge it like I did, right, when I installed the page, then you're good to go. But if you did not merge it, or you're not sure you merged it, what you can do here is you can click into update counter, and you can actually check to see what bot field, this is the bot field right here, and say, okay, is this the right bot field? Is this the product that's matching my product for the rebate giveaway? And if the answer is no, then you would make sure that you put the right bot field right here. If the answer is yes, then you just hit save and you'd carry on with your day. Now, this is something that I would say is almost mandatory. And the reason why I didn't have it by default is because I wanted to make sure you guys do this properly, is then you connect this over here, or actually, wait, you would actually connect this line. Sorry about that. You connect this one over here, and then you connect this, right, just like this over here. And the reasoning why you do that is because once they add it to cart, it actually will count it kind of as a purchase. The truth is once people get to this part, they pretty much purchase every single time. It's just a matter of them getting the notification saying, yep, you're good to go. You can purchase it now. That's why I want to count the counter up, because if you don't add this little section right here, people can get queued into this like add to cart and delay for like, they'll get queued in, and then let's say there's 50 people that come in, it won't stop others from entering this point, and then all of a sudden all these 50 people get told, yes, you can purchase, and then the counter is essentially not really set up to limit those people, and then there's like 50 purchases. So that's why you want to make sure this is here first, so that way if people come later on the day, it'll make sure that it tells them like, oh, sorry, we ran out of units so far. And the reasoning for that is just because you don't want to exceed your limits. Troy, you want to speak a little bit here?
I was just gonna, if you could just zoom in just a touch.
Okay.
On that section. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know it's a little hard to see this. The good news is once you guys install it yourselves, you can kind of play around with it. I'm hoping I've explained this part properly. Something I will say though, if you don't fully understand kind of my lingo or how if I explained it, I would highly recommend you hire one of our experts. This is something that's fairly easy to find. Again, you go on the Sell.Tools website, and then there's a experts tab. Let me just show you what that would be like. You would go into, I believe it's automation, and then the ManyChat experts, and then you would find an expert that corresponds to whatever problem you're having, and then you would kind of go over that with that person. That way, the flows are set up properly. So again, if you don't fully understand it, that would be the kind of recommended route that I would go with that. Okay, and that is basically it for kind of setting this up. I know that this was like a little bit much there. I did explain quite a lot here. The next portion, now that we've basically adjusted everything other than, editing the scripts, which again, like I'm not going to actually edit them because you don't need to, but again, if you want to, you can. The next part is what we need to do is we need to hit shift, and then we click, and then we drag, and we need to drag everything that is useful to us. So in my case, everything that's useful is all of this. You don't need to copy paste the notes. The notes are not really, I don't want to say they're not useful. Obviously, they're useful for the editors, which is you guys, but they're not useful to actually go inside the rebate automation flow. So now what I did was, and of course you guys can't see, but I click Control C, right? So copy. And it's actually kind of cool. ManyChat tells you you use Control C to copy paste right here. I didn't actually notice that until now. So yeah, you just hit Control C, then you go into your other, rebate flow. Make sure you hit the edit button at the top. And then you're going to want to paste it more or less anywhere. I would recommend pasting it probably right around here, because this is where you would probably put your alternative finding methods right here. And you probably want to put your, I guess your A9 meta interaction flow right here. So I'm just going to paste that in. And again, it might take a little bit of time because ManyChat's being a little glitchy, but as you can see, it pasted it in. Now, while it's all highlighted like this, you just want to click kind of one of the nodes inside that green highlight, and you have to wait till the cursor changes kind of clickers as you saw there. And I'm just going to drag it And again, the ManyChat's being really slow, so that's why like it might not look like I'm doing anything, but it's just ManyChat being a little bit ridiculous with how long it's taking to move around. But I'm not sure if there's just because their servers are a little slower right now, but it just seems to be that way for the time being. Okay, so that's fairly good enough for me. I'll leave it right there. And then I'll just click anywhere on the white sandbox to unhighlight everything. And I'll let it kind of load. Again, things are a little slower, but it's just how it is right now. Now, what you want to do to plumb this in is you actually want to, right after the finding method, you want to lead them in at the start here. And then at the out, you want to lead them into the asking for order number message. So I'll show you exactly how to plumb it in. It's actually really, really simple. Once it kind of lets me move around, I'm sorry for the delay. I'm actually going to close the other tab here just to hopefully help me out a little bit here. This ManyChat seems to be ridiculously slow for whatever reason. Oops, I didn't mean to. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so it's kind of zooming in. So right around here, guys, I know it's really, really, really hard to see. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. And then I'll show you exactly where you want to plumb this in. Kind of unfortunate that ManyChat's so slow right now. I'm hoping that you guys can see it, but you see that this is the buying method message. Let me just zoom in one last time, and then we'll go into this. So right here, this is the kind of buying message right here. So instead of going, got Amazon order ID, what you'd want to do is you want to essentially click this. You're going to have to change the scripts maybe just a little bit here to match kind of the next goal here. So let's just go into zoom out. Or actually here, okay, instead of this one here, because I've read the scripts right here. So instead of this one right here, because this is the kind of buying method, what you would want to do is whatever the buying method is right after that. So in this case, it's this, but we might have to edit the scripts just a little bit to kind of match. So it's like, you approve the purchase. So what we want to do is like, we might have to change the kind of buttons. So like, let's say we say, first, make sure you get onto the detail page. Let us know when you're on the detail page, right? So you'd probably have to edit this message to match your kind of goals here a little bit, right? And then once you do that, this button right here should be something along the lines of, on Amazon page or something like that. So on Amazon page, or on product page or something like that. All right, we hit that. And then we'll take this little button right here. And then now I have to basically link it with that first message node at the bottom there. Again, ManyChat's being a little bit slow, so it kind of is unfortunate here. It's not that one, it's further down the line, right here. See how it says asking for add to cart message? So we linked it there. And now what we want to do, the other kind of two, at the tail end right here, this is essentially them getting approved to add it to or purchase the product, right? So after they've added it to cart, they've waited that delay. This is the message letting them know, hey, you're good to go on making that purchase. So they click claim offer, and we're going to link that to asking for their order number. So let me just essentially, I know this is a little excruciating with how slow it is. And we just want to link it just to say before this step right here. So that way we're checking, some certain conditions to make sure they haven't already purchased the product, for an example. Okay, so we linked it once, now we got to link it again. Let me know if it's a little confusing, Troy, just because I would like a second perspective on this. I'm trying to do my best to make it somewhat as reasonable as I can here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate ManyChat's bogging down a little bit, but
yeah, you see it.
Because I think the connection points are what's important. I think we have to really stress that both resources, and hence the name, when you go to the Seller Tool site, and look at the free ManyChat flows, the add-on name it's very fitting, where we're just adding this on to existing flows and then knowing where to copy paste and plug it in. You know, it's in terms of to actually complete it when ManyChat is our friend. And obviously, you know, Tyler, you're streaming, you're screen sharing, so we're stressing it a little bit more. That it's actually pretty simple to drop it in and then just know where to connect it. So I think it's
yeah. So
good.
Yeah, we're good to go here. I would highly recommend, again, like we're doing this live here, but you would probably want to change the scripts here. Instead of saying you're approved the purchase, you just like say, okay, you know, before you know, purchasing, we need you to find our product. And then just click the button below, let us know when you've found the page, right? So you change these scripts just to match that kind of goal. That way it doesn't seem so weird that it's like, you're good to go. And then they click this button and then it tells them, okay, now we need you to add it to cart to make sure you found the right product. These really add-on flows were really designed around the idea that they're probably going to do search, find, buy. So with search, find, buy, it's like, okay, now it's time to find the product. And then you give them a keyword, you tell them to go on Google/Amazon, they go on Amazon, they punch in that keyword, they scroll around, find your product, boom, now they're on the product. And then from there, you're saying, okay, we need to make sure you found the right product. And if you read the scripts on the add-on, which unfortunately, I don't think I'll have the time here just because we are exceeding it just a little bit here. But if you read the scripts right here, you'll see that it says, make sure that you add on, make sure you add it to the cart, and then you take a screenshot. So that way we know you've added it you've added the right product to the cart. And then they'll do so. And again, this is where, if you want, guys, you can actually add on like a Google Sheet integration where, like, you know, so that way somebody can take a look at all these screenshots that are being sent in and you can actually confirm whether or not it's real. This automation doesn't do that for you, but if it's something that you'd like to do, then you can definitely do that. And then it lets them know, like, hey, we'll get back to you, you know, once it's been approved, like once your screenshot's been approved. And that's how you're essentially getting them to add it to cart. That's how it makes sense, right? Because if you just told them like, hey, we want you to add it to cart, so Amazon gives us more ranking weight, they're just going to be like, what the, you know, they're going to think it's a little odd. You could probably get away with it, but this is just the more real way of doing it, in my opinion. So just keep that in mind. And that is it for kind of setting up the meta interactions. I think, let me just take a look. Yeah, I do have a bit of time. I don't know if I'll be able to plumb it in perfect here, guys, but what I'll do is I'll try to go over the other flow right here, which was number 2. And this is essentially page interactions, right? So instead of using the, you know, add to cart / time delay, we're going to do the page interactions add-on. And this one here, guys, is even easier because you literally don't have to play with it. Like with the other one, I had to play with that. I had to play with the counter, right? To make sure that the counter is synced up properly with it, because you want to make sure you're limiting the people coming in. As soon as they add it to cart, the counter goes up, and it's not after they made the purchase, the counter goes up, because if they do that, then what's going to happen is it's going to interfere with one another. Because then if you don't have the counter going up as soon as they add it to cart, then bam, next thing you know, you can have like 50 people adding it to cart, and then the time delays will sync them up kind of randomly. But theoretically, the next day you can have like 50 purchases because they'll all get through kind of that process. You don't want that. Anyways, so this one here is much simpler because it goes under the context of being a survey. So all you have to do, guys, unless you want to change the scripts, which again is something that you can definitely do, right here, the instructions is that you have to change X. So this would match whatever image you want them to go on to. Theoretically, it wouldn't be image 1, it'd be image like 2 or 3 or something along those lines. But essentially, it's like asking like, hey, you know, what is the word on the image that pops out to you, right? So you can, most products have images that have some type of wording in it, just a little bit of wording. And then you can ask them like, hey, what's the, and you can actually use these surveys as like actual kind of feedback, right? And like, not just we're using it for A9's purposes. You can actually get the survey and get them to do legitimate things that you want to know about. So there is some like actual use case to this as well. I just make it so it's like they're staying on your page a little longer, they're scrolling through, right? In this case, they're going to whatever page, like whatever image you want, rather whether that be an image 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and you're asking them a specific question about that image, so you know that they have to go onto the image to answer correctly. Nobody's there to correct them, so like they could just say XYZ and get past, but hopefully they're taking it somewhat seriously. Okay, so let's go into installing this. Again, I know I'm talking fast, so I'm trying to do this fairly quickly because I don't want to go over time. So what you need to do is you'd hit, shift, click, and then you grab the entire flow that you need, which is, from action step here all the way to the message node here. You go copy, control C, which is copy. And then you go into your meta interactions or your rebate automation flow, which in our case, it's right here. And then we're going to hit edit flow. All right. Okay, perfect. So we've hit edit flow. And now what we need to do, guys, is we just basically need to control V into, I'm going to do it right under our add to cart one, just because. And I might try to plumb it in with you guys, but it just seems like ManyChat's being a little restrictive because usually it wouldn't take me more than 30 seconds, but it also doesn't help that there's so many nodes here. Like the more nodes you have, the more laggy it is likely to be. It's usually not this bad, but for whatever reason, ManyChat for the past couple days, I want to say like past 3 to 2 days has been fairly laggy. I don't know if it's something to do with their servers or, but yeah, it just seems like it's a little bit slower than norm. Okay, so Trey, you want to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, you can go ahead and add those in. I just wanted to make sure to clarify too, because I know we dove into the idea of A9 meta interactions, just to make it super clear, because we're doing add to carts and page interactions. These are all positive ranking factors. This is still the outcome that we're trying to achieve. So I know that this is very tactical in terms of how we walk through this, but the reason that you do it, and this is where we'll run, if we run add to carts, if we run page interaction campaigns, you don't always have to run rebate offers, or you can run them alongside rebate offers to be able to realize the cost savings, because you're doing things that are still positively impacting rank without the sales velocity that comes with rebates. It's always great to have that because these are just a diversity of signals, but really just to stress that's where the A9 comes in. The interactions are because Amazon wants to see an abundance of interactions, user interactions, as we called it in the other webinar. And ManyChat makes it just a lot easier to facilitate. So I just want to clarify that too, as you're adding in the page interactions flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good note to put in. So I think I'm going to be a little restricted in time, guys, but I'll just kind of show you, and I might not be able to click it here just because I think it's going to take a little bit too long. But essentially, right after your finding method, you would link up to the first action inside that survey, right? So inside the Amazon page interaction add-on flow, right? Which would be essentially grabbing this line right here that is connected to our add to carts and then putting it right here. And then right after this message at the tail end, you would take that and you would put it into asking for their order number. So right up here would go right into this condition right here, like we did for the add to carts. And that's how you plumb it in. One thing I did forget to mention, just because I was being a little expedient and fast about it, is with the page interactions, if you do plumb in the counter, like the little minus, like let me actually know right there. Let me just go over here. If you do plumb in the counter, which is what we did right here, you're going to want to remove the counter further up in the flow right over here. Let me show you, just so it doesn't count up 2 times when they do purchase, which is right over here. I know it's a little hard to see, but I've kind of memorized where everything is. I'll zoom in just a little bit so you guys could see it. And again, guys, if this is all kind of like, wow, this is a bit much, I would highly recommend just going and hiring an expert. This is stuff that to them is very simple. It's not that difficult to set up. But if you're new to ManyChat, or maybe you're not the most confident in it, or you just want somebody to audit your work or something along those lines, the experts can help you in that regards. So I'm again trying to scroll up. Okay, so here it is right here. So again, how you would go about removing it is like you can just click in the action node and then click this little X mark, right? So in our case, we'll remove it. And then once you're finished making all the edits that you want to make, then you would just hit publish. And then it's going to load, and then you're good to go. So that is it for the meta interactions. We've pretty much installed both of them. I know I didn't, fully do the page optimization one, but if you understand how to do that version, then you'll understand how to do the competitor version. They're literally both the same thing. They're both surveys, and it's just like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? The only difference is the on page one focuses on your page. The competitor one focuses on like getting them to go on a competitor's page and then comparing the two. So it's like kind of neat because you can actually ask the customer slash users, hey, which one do you think is better? And you could be tactical about like the questions you're asking. Like I don't particularly care too much. My goal is just to get them to do different things. But again, if this is something that you're really interested in and like you actually want to know this information and then you paste it into a spreadsheet, and then maybe you use that information to kind of benefit your listing, or maybe you make some optimization changes, then that's obviously really, really good to do. It's just for me, usually I don't do that. But again, I've had some clients that do that, but it's not the norm. But it is something you can do. I just wanted to mention that. Okay, guys, that is it for the kind of three, well, at least the two anyways, that we covered right here. The competitors, again, the same idea. They're both surveys. So yeah. Do we have any questions? I think we do. Nope, Troy just linked some stuff. Oh, we got one question right here, which is more ranking. So the more ranking, I mean, we had a little bit of an interesting debate, which would have been nice to go in more detail with Anthony. Add to carts, from what he's saying, gives almost the equivalent of a full purchase sale. But part of me doesn't believe that it's like actually equivalent to a full purchase sale, because if you just get add to carts, it will hurt your overall conversion rate. But then again, they actually do count an add to cart as part of that conversion rate. But I think if you have a really weird ratio of like, let's say 10 add to carts to 1 purchase, I believe that will maybe flag their algorithm and then negatively impact your ranking. So I think if you do have a balance, then you're going to get a good amount of rank. Like that's what I usually do, is I try to get add to carts and full purchases. But I would say it's more important to have the proper ratio than it is like is add to carts better or is it full purchases? It's like they're both really viable, but you don't want to mess too much with the ratio. Troy, do you want to add to that? I think you did.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've got stronger feelings on, because when we, obviously in the Seller Tools platform, we work with a lot of data, and having search volume and all these things that we've had for as long as we have, what we can see is cases where there are products that welcome a abundance of search and a abundance of traffic, but really lack in conversions because they've actually manipulated Amazon. This was highly popularized when people were using bots to create artificial or invalid traffic. And so it would create this scenario where you'd have a ton of traffic and little to no conversions. And so what would still happen is, even in that scenario, so a ton of traffic, little to no conversions, products would rank. And what can we sort of gather from that is that conversions aren't absolutely essential, because people were literally manipulating ranking with the opposite, where just by virtue of doing the things that we touched on today, and Tyler and I, we're very soft when it comes to sales and pitching and stuff, but this type of stuff is really when you can rank without selling a product, which is very cost effective. But I think the question too, Oben threw it out in terms of the ratio, is you want a variety of signals. Kind of put yourself in Amazon's shoes. What would they want to see to provide relevancy to a product? Is they want to see buyer intent, a ton of discovery where they're spending time on product detail pages and completing page interactions and coming from a variety of sources, and hopefully high quality customers. That's a long form way of me saying diversity. And so this is why they invalidated that fake traffic previously. But what could we read into that as sellers is that, oh, they're doing this with almost no conversions. Because when you send hundreds of thousands of traffic, botted traffic to a detail page, and then almost none of it's converting because it's artificial, it's scripts being run via proxies, there's a lot we can glean from that. So that's my soapbox answer, but I think it's helpful to understand how this impacts A9 and ranking, and how you want to use some of the things, some of these free flows to take advantage of hey, I don't have to convert. I need to also tell Amazon there's strong buyer intent through the investment of time, effort, and energy on the product detail page. And add to carts right now are really high in that list of factors.
Okay, that was quite a political answer. Um, so what's the ideal ratio so from what I've noticed, the ideal ratio is a 2-to-1 or like at most a 2-to-4. 2-to-4 is like when it's a brand new product, you can get away with it more. So what that means is basically 2 add to carts per purchase or 4 add to carts per purchase. You'd only want to do a 4-to-1 if it's a brand new product. You can get away with a bit more. At least that's from my experience. So ideally, you usually do not want to. So if you get like, let's say 5 purchases on average a day, then you can get away with like 10 add to carts at most. But if it's a brand new, listing, you're in that honeymoon phase, they're still trying to figure out where they should be placed and so on. You could probably get away with a bit more. But I wouldn't go too nuts and do like a 10-to-1 ratio. You can want to add that to the.
No, that's great. No,
No.
And some of the work we've done with our brands, we use some of those ratios. So that's a good specific answer to highlight what Oben may be looking for there. And then I see this other question. So Valen, how are drop-off rates affected with these A9 interaction drop-off rates? So maybe a lack of follow through in the ManyChat flow.
It's almost like 0, but I would say there's probably like a 2, maybe 5% at most. People, by the time they get to that part, they're pretty committed. The drop-off rates from when they get into the ManyChat flows, I've noticed that it's that main message, the kind of policy/rules message, the term message. I can show you which one I'm talking about if you'd like here. Well, of course, ManyChat's not going to be super forgiving here, but it's that like really kind of big one that explains the policies of everything. I will do my best to show you really quickly here. And it's with every kind of rebate flow, they all have this kind of big, massive message right here. Let me just click into it to show you. So in our case, it's called the term/rules message. And this is where people drop off. Once they kind of pick their rebate method, or in some cases, they don't have a rebate method, they just know what rebate they're going to get. Once they go through that and they give you their email or phone number, if they're doing Venmo, it's pretty hard to get them to drop off. I mean, you have to do quite a lot. They tend not to drop off unless they can't find your product, for an example. That's my experience. It's very low. It would probably be anywhere from like 5 to less %. Okay, so I think we've answered that one well. You want to add to that, Troy, or I see you're unmuted now.
No, I think that's a great point. Yeah, setting up other just conversion events, just little things, but usually on the front end, it's true. You often see plenty of follow through and lack of drop off there.
All right, yeah, that's 100% correct. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I want to paste this into the chat so everybody can have this, and these are essentially the helpful resources. Again, all of the, like I did have a meta or beta templates section, like a Google document, but they're actually all on the website, so you don't really need to take a look at that at all. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you want to take a look at that Google document and all the templates that are available, then you can do that. There is a free course where Troy goes into kind of the basics of ManyChat, how to use it, how it works, so on. Definitely something worth looking at. Experts, again, something if you guys are looking to really utilize ManyChat and you're not the most comfortable with ManyChat, or maybe you want to do a certain project, again, the experts group is a really, or like at least that page is a really good resource to kind of go in and hire somebody, get them to do it properly. And then the last kind of resource we have here is the webinars past recordings. This is something, it's just a Google document as of right now that looks like this. And it basically gives you links to all of our past webinars, as well as like a level of importance, how long the webinar was, when it was recorded, the topic at hand, and as well as the actual Google slides related to said topic. So it gives you really everything you could possibly want. And I know I've basically talked about some of the past webinars, like example, setting up your ManyChat account, setting up the rebate automation flows. I talked about using alternative finding methods. I believe I have a webinar on that one. I believe it's either different ranking methods or multiple, it's different ranking methods, which is like including things like search, find, buy, laundering links. There's a full laundering links call. So again, like this is really, really good resource for you guys to kind of go into, take a look at what you really want to learn. Obviously, it's a big time commitment to go through everything. So start with the things that are important to you, or maybe through level of importance, right? Some of them are lower importance than others. And that is essentially it for the helpful resources. Do you want to add anything to the helpful resources, Troy?
No, I think this is all, it's a great summary of applicable training. So where you feel like you may need to have the most in the way of additional educational resources. And I say resources, the free ManyChat flows it is huge. Everything that Tyler has developed, fully integrated to where we can even get away. I know you knock it, Tyler, but to explain everything in in-depth strategies in an hour, the fact that a lot of these things can still be set up in a handful of minutes. That's really the chief aim, is easy to implement solutions.
That's the goal, guys. It's just easy install templates, edit it to match your goals, and you're good to go. I've tried making the templates as easily understandable as possible, with as well kind of making them as advanced as possible too, which is a very challenging mix to do. Okay, so guys, that is it for the call. We really do appreciate you guys taking the time to come with us, and we appreciate it. So yeah, that is it.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. If you have any questions, bring them over to FBA Kings or Facebook group. But thanks for joining. Tyler, thanks for a great presentation. And hopefully see everybody next time.
Sounds good. All right, later, guys.